Java with Joe, the podcast, is brought to you by Kemba Credit Union, celebrating over 90 years of quality service to our membership. Sponsored in part by First Choice Coffee, the official coffee of Java with Joe, and Real Vision. And now your host, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Westchester Liberty Chamber Alliance, Joe Hinson.
Thank you, Sarah. Today we're with Dr. Ashley Whitley, Superintendent of Lakota's local school district. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So you grew up in southwestern Kentucky, and your first teaching job was there as an English teacher?
That is correct. I grew up in a little small town called Beaver Dam, Kentucky, and my first job was about 20 miles north of that in Grayson County.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so why a career in public education? Mm-hmm. And from what I can gather, from what you've been able to do, I guess that's part of your DNA?
It is. Pretty much everybody except for my father is a teacher.
Okay.
Now, ironically, most of them are math or chemistry or physics teachers. I'm a little bit of the anomaly. I took the arts and humanities path. Right. But actually, my mother this year, she retired after 54 years of teaching.
Oh, my gosh.
So teaching is in my blood. We often joked as a child, she would give me like her old grade books and a whistle, and I would go out and teach class and have PE and things. So from a very early age, I think I knew that I would be on this path.
Very good. So something that you had from the beginning, I think is really interesting. Your mantra, every leader a teacher, every teacher a leader, every student a success. Mm-hmm. Is this something that you saw, something that you came up with yourself? Tell us a little bit about that.
You know, I think I saw it somewhere and it resonated with me. And it has literally been on every resume since my very first teaching job all the way through my superintendency. And I truly believe that whatever your role, you have the opportunity to be a leader in a district. And our job is to impact students, right? And so I think whether you're sitting in the superintendent chair, whether you're the office manager, whether you're the teacher, whether you're the Spark editor, everybody has the ability to have that reciprocity to grow and learn to make each other better.
Sure, absolutely. So you're not new to the Lakota School District. In fact, you've been living in Liberty Township since you came to Ohio. So what brought you to Ohio? And initially, what brought you to Lakota?
So my husband works at P&G. Actually, he worked originally at the Ross site. And so when we first moved here, we actually lived in Westchester here on Union Center. Lived here for about 2 or 3 years. And then we moved to Liberty Township to kind of buy our permanent home and start our family. And we've been here ever since. But when we came to Ohio, I immediately was drawn to Lakota local schools. I liked the community. I liked the size. Of course, I loved English. And so I was an English teacher there for 5 years and was given wonderful opportunities, not only to teach, but really some leadership roles early on, like a department chair role. Yes. I also was placed in the East Precinct where I got my ability to do some master scheduling and some disciplinary pieces with students. And I really think it just kind of lit the fire of administration for me and thinking about how my scope could be beyond the classroom.
Yes. So as you were alluding to, initially you taught advanced placement English.
I did.
Now, tell me how you achieved that instead of just regular English class. Is that something you test for? Is that something you focused in on and went to school for? Tell us how you came about doing that.
So for whatever reason, early on in my teaching career, I was always really mostly placed with honor students. And I think I had great success with that, not only with the data, but just the relationships with kids. Advanced placement is a little bit of a different prong in that when you kind of decide that you want to go into advanced placement, anything, whether it's English, biology, calculus, I think that you have to be willing to become a number. And what I mean by that in AP testing, there's a number or a score that you're given on your children's success or rate on a test, much like our state report card. And I think I embraced that. Also, probably a little bit of my DNA. My mother taught AP calculus for most of her career. And so I think it was just always modeled to me to aspire to be able to teach multiple levels of children. So when I came to Lakota, I taught advanced placement, but I also taught kind of regular English, CP English. We had 3 different levels at the time. And really, I just loved being with children and embracing the love of English and helping instill that in them, whatever level.
And as you were alluding to before, you served as a department chair at Lakota East High School for 5 years. So advanced placement, but you had the leadership bug too.
I did. I think just we were about 23 member department at that time with the West or with the East main campus and the freshman campus. And I think I had wonderful colleagues. I wanted to be able to have some visioning for our department and our course selection and hand in a master schedule. And so I think that relationship piece plus that leadership piece plus my content area really made that an exciting opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So then for 13 years, you were an assistant principal, and then assistant superintendent at Wyoming City Schools. So was that a tough decision to go out of the Lakota district, and why Wyoming?
Yeah. So actually it was one because, I love Lakota local schools, but opportunities present themselves when they do, right? Sometimes you don't have the luxury of choice. But it was very different than what I was in, right? We're 17,000 students. Look, Wyoming City Schools in total is 2,100 kids. We have 5 buildings in Wyoming City Schools versus 23. I think one of the things that drew me to that was the leadership, was the high caliber of excellence, the tradition of excellence that they have there as well. And so I thought it would be good to be able to experience a different scope than what I was in and start my leadership journey.
Absolutely. Coming full circle, and as you said, Lakota is home. You started in your current role as superintendent in July 2024 and are now beginning your second year. So how did year one go for you?
Year one was wonderful. And what I mean by that is you ultimately feel at home, truly, literally, and figuratively. But one of the beauties of being a first-year superintendent, or a new superintendent really in any district, is that you just get to go and absorb the community. I did 106 plus listening and learning sessions. And one of the things that was great to hear about the strengths of our district, the growth opportunities of our district, and really hear from people what they were looking for as me as the superintendent. And so I think anytime that you get to engage literally with the stakeholders of the community to figure out the vision and the long-term plan for a district, that's super exciting. And even though, I'm not in my first year, continuing to build those kind of touch points in, right now we're doing that with master facilities. In the spring, we'll do that with strategic planning. The school district represents the community. And so making sure you keep a really steady pulse of that, not only from students and staff, but the community at large, I think is super important.
So what led you to say, I'm going to do these community listening sessions? Was this something you saw somewhere else? Is this something you said, well, whenever I become a superintendent, this is what I'm going to do? And how was it? How was it supported by the community when you decided you were going to do this and you started building momentum? And as you said, you had 106 that you did.
I think it was both modeled for me in my time in Wyoming City Schools with both of the superintendents there. I think some people might shy away from listening and learning sessions in our community because we're so large, but I actually think that's a further need of why you need it. You don't, when you have as many people as we have in Westchester and Liberty Township, you really have to be deliberate and intentional to get that pulse. And so I think continuing that dialogue, because we are part of the community, and keeping a pulse on that is super important. And like I said, it's a tradition that I want to keep not only in my first year, but beyond.
Very good. So was there anything consistent that you took from that as you think back on that now? There was a consistent message that you heard over and over again.
As far as strengths, I heard several things. I heard that our teachers love our students, right? And they want to build relationships, and they care about our kids, not only as students, as people. I heard that people take great pride in our community, and that they feel that they're proud to be at Lakota local schools or in Westchester and Liberty. And that's something you can't underestimate, right? I think sometimes in listening sessions, people think always that kids come up, and they don't in all communities. So making sure that we were very student forward was wonderful to hear. As far as growth areas, some things I heard were around our class size, particularly in K-6 is somewhat large, 27 plus, and making room for that. I also heard about just making sure that all means all as far as students, that we're reaching all students and all of our demographics and all of our diversity, which is just one of the great backbones of Lakota local schools, but making sure that we're really paying attention not only to our report card, but our classroom experiences for all students.
Absolutely. So you talked about the difference in size between the two school districts, Wyoming and Lakota, but also you've got 2 high schools. You've got Lakota East and Lakota West. So talk a little bit about that with the challenges that you have, knowing that you're duplicating, if you will, and the size obviously is 17,000 plus. But what is that what did you hear, and what have you seen so far in going into year 2 with having to support 2 high schools?
I think just looking at totality of east side and west side of town, not just the high schools, the west side of town currently has about 1,600 more kids than the east side, so a little bit larger scale. But one of the things I heard in my listening sessions, and I experienced this as a teacher as well, was that we want them to be aligned. We want children to have similar foundational experiences so that there's not missed opportunities. But at the same time, we definitely want some autonomy, right? Lakota West has a different culture than Lakota East, and you can't make them mirror images because they represent different communities.
That's a good point.
And so I think it's that balance of where do we find that alignment so we can have consistent opportunities for our children on both sides of town, but where do we also take great pride and keep the flavor of each side of town that makes it unique?
And so what you just said really is apparent by the fact that you had some experiences before with the Lakotas, East and West, living here and coming back. For someone who was new to the area, new to the job, and might be trying to do that and not recognize the differences that you've seen.
The communities are very different. And like I said, I think some people think that Lakota is unique because we do represent Westchester and Liberty Township, but I think that we promote, there is a unification there, but there's also a diversity there that we like to keep while adhering to that alignment.
Yeah, absolutely. So this year, your team is being guided by the principle: event plus result equals outcome. E plus R equals O. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so E plus R equals O, it comes through Focus 3, and really it's about what you control, right? There are lots of events in a day-to-day, my own role, but even in a classroom experience or for a student or for a teacher, that the event happens, and if you really think about what outcome you want, your response to that dictates that, whether you remain calm, whether you have professional dialogue, whether you're collaborative. And so it's really, we talk about thinking about your 20 square feet, what you can control in a given day and the impact that can have. Right now we're doing that with adults, but eventually that will reach children as well, because it's really just about pressing pause and reflecting before we react. Because sometimes our reactions can have outcomes that aren't necessarily our preference.
Yes. So as you probably know, other organizations use this, right?
Absolutely.
And where I first heard about this was Ohio State University, right? Urban Meyer was football team. And so have you had any connection with Ohio State and with the football team based upon, obviously you're going through this now, they've had experience in that before, and any opportunity to connect there?
Yeah. The Focus 3 does a great job of connecting you with all of their different stakeholders, right? One of the things probably about maybe 10 years ago was their first foray into education. And so looking at like Dublin, Wyoming was part of that. Mason was part of that. That was kind of their first dipping their toe into education. They were in the business world, in the athletic world. And I think it's really funny when they do, or ironic rather, when they do that training for educators, they go, it's kind of like business, but it has its own little uniqueness, right? So they've catered that training to educators. And so I do think today, in fact, this afternoon, we have some E plus R kind of reinforcement or connection. We're getting ready to delve into our culture blueprint work, which is where you look at what your beliefs and behaviors and your outcomes that you want, getting ready to start that work with our staff. But no, I think they do a great job at really looking at how interdisciplinary worlds can come together to really build momentum. I think sometimes in education, I think I've said this to you, Joe, we tend to look inward and to try to learn from ourselves where we need to look outwards, because business, sports, whatever it may be, they have opportunities that we can learn from each and every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this foundation we're talking about is basically part of your strategic planning process that you're going to begin in November. Is that correct?
It'll actually be in the spring.
Okay.
So probably about January.
Okay.
Looking to get through kind of some different things in November, with some things going on. And then we will kind of do the very same thing of listening and learning sessions, but we will do that through a strategic planning lens. So what do we want our future to look like? What are the important tenets that we want to hold to? And then where do we want to kind of learn and grow? But I think using kind of the framework that E plus R or Focus 3 provides us, plus our own Lakota voices, we'll come up with an awesome strategic plan to guide us for the next 5 to 7 years.
Very nice, very nice. So let's talk about the state report card.
Yeah.
Something to be proud of recently came out, and Lakota earned 4.5 out of 5 stars for the second straight year. And only 24% of the 607 school districts in Ohio receive 4.5 stars or higher.
That's right.
So congratulations,
well,
first of all.
Well, thank you. But that is certainly a testament to our wonderful staff and our wonderful students, right? It takes real diligence and intentionality to move that report card. That work even started before me with Dr. Lawley. So really seeing the fruition of those results.
Yes, and knowing that you're competitive, as I know you are, you're not resting on those laurels.
That's right.
Because, you see 4.5 and you say, well,
you want 5.
We want
That's
5, right?
That's right.
So as you think about that and you think about your strategic plan and then things as you move forward here, what do you, in your mind, do you think is going to take you to that 5 point?
Really, I think I'm going to focus on kind of 2 levels. I'm going to focus on our early literacy for our youngest learners. There are 3 components in that, and really each component really weighs heavily in overall, right? We're doing well in that category, but we can do better. Particularly, literacy starts the foundation for a child's experience in reading K through 12. And then the other part, which is a new measure, the CCWM, so the College Career and Workforce Readiness piece. We got 2 stars in that. We were just shy of 3 stars, but really, I think continuing to think about our business advisory committee, thinking about those opportunities of internships and apprenticeships, it pushes into AP, it pushes into college readiness and college credit plus, really making sure that students understand all of the different pathways for them in our 4 E's, whether that's college or enlistment or enrollment or employment, really just making sure that we delve into that and really make a robust path for that. Certainly as education, we are about, academics, but there is a whole workforce readiness piece that you can't lose or underestimate in the 21st century. And so I think that's an area that we're getting ready to dive really deeply into.
Yes. And as you know, anything we can do to help on the business side,
absolutely,
we're here to help and support that initiative. So one of the initiatives you and your team have been working on is the Master Facilities Plan. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. This is a journey that started all the way back in 2018. I was just a community member at that time.
Okay.
And so really our Master Facilities Plan is looking to take our current footprint of 21 buildings, and take that down to 16. And the reason we want to do that is it allows for some operational savings. And then also renovating those facilities provides opportunities for increased safety features, reduced class sizes, fewer transitions. We have quite a few of those just from grade grand to grade band, and then just to have some more flexible spaces. Again, taking the voice of the community and what we heard back in that journey of 2018 on, and putting that into a plan that hopefully can meet the needs of Lakota local schools going forward.
So you've got, 20, how many?
We have 23 total,
23
but
total
21
buildings.
sites because
Okay.
you have Central and Creekside and
Okay.
West Freshman in one building. So it's 21 buildings down to 16.
Uh-huh.
And then reducing those transitions, I think, is huge, right?
Yes.
So right now, for those who don't know, we have a K2 section, we have a 3-6 of elementary, we have a 7-8, and then we have a freshman standalone, and then we have that 10 through 12. Our families, particularly our families and our students, said it's just so much transition. We don't have any consistency to get behind. So in our new configuration, we would have preschool at Liberty Early Childhood. We would have a K5 band, so a nice long stretch, and then a 6 through 8 band in 2 junior highs, and then a 9 through 12 comprehensive high school.
Yes.
So just reducing those transitions so that we build those relationships with adults. We have really common procedures and practices for our families, but then also kids can really just get socialization under their belt in those continuity and long strips. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you were mentioning that last week that you in one day were touring, 5 buildings? Is that correct? So that has probably become pretty commonplace for you.
Yes. We just want to make sure that, our community is informed about our master facilities plan. And so Mr. Zink, the treasurer, and I have been just making sure we're going out and meeting with anybody and everybody to talk about that, because we want people to be armed with information.
Sure. And so, you talk about facilities, and obviously you're talking about class sizes, and you're talking about obviously technology, and you're talking about age of the buildings, and obviously moving forward to be able to have some not only continuity, but you're looking for some sustainability too.
Absolutely. It's that long-term planning, right?
Yes.
Making sure that buildings can meet our needs, not only currently, but we're planning for the next generation that we don't even know what that looks like.
Absolutely.
So making sure, again, talking about the ability for those buildings to be able to flex and morph as our needs change. And then I also think that just making sure, going back to that, we meet all students' needs. I don't think a lot of folks realize that if the building was built before 1992, it's not necessarily ADA compliant. And so a lot of our learners, particularly our special education learners, find some of our buildings on the day-to-day challenging, much less long-term. So again, just making sure that our buildings not only meet our curricular needs, but also our long-term needs as far as our student population.
Yes. And seeing some of the buildings of the future, they surely a lot of times look like offices of the future. I mean, and office buildings and a workforce and how a workforce works today
is very different.
A lot of parallels.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so it's very, very interesting. So, as you think about what you've been able to do in your career, and if our viewers say, "Boy, I want to get an education." In fact, I talked to somebody the other day that spent a lot of time in their career in business, and then all of a sudden decided, "You know what? I want to become a teacher." What would you recommend for somebody who would like to get into teaching? Because we know that being a teacher today, there's a need for teachers.
Absolutely.
And so what would you recommend for people who are watching this that would be interested in teaching, interested in getting into a position, or if they're teaching, want to go and take it a step further and get into administration in the future? What would that
So
look
a couple
like?
of things, I think if you're just kind of waffling with the idea about being a teacher, always be a sub, right? You can always get in, get your feet wet and say, does this really set well with me? We have a wonderful HR department. We have wonderful mentors. If you just want to call me, call our assistant superintendent, call our HR and say, what's the easiest pathway for me to get there, right?
Sure.
How can I do this with fidelity, but I want to impact kids quickly? There are certainly more alternative and supplemental ways than a traditional 4-year degree. I also think someone asked me this, they're working on their superintendent's license, one of our principals, and they said, how do I build capacity as a future leader, as a role beyond a principal? And my comment to them is, we should always be doing that in education, right? We should be putting into you at all times, whether that's in Lakota local schools or external experiences, because we want to build our internal benches and our succession plans, but also when you're ready to spread your wings, we also want to make sure to support you and make sure that we've given you those opportunities for growth. The beauty of our size is we have 21 buildings right now that you can do that in, right?
Yeah,
so we have plenty of opportunities for people to be mentored or to have like kind of softer experiences before they dive in. And again, I'm a perfect example of that. Back when I was a teacher, somebody gave me those first few steps that ignited that fire, and here I am today.
Sure.
And so I think it's about investing in people, both time and resources and energy and passion, that ultimately would lead them to be able to be a successful leader here or even a teacher here.
Well, and one of the things that you did in your career, which I surely appreciate, but you can't be afraid to make a change, because you made a change in your career and it brought you back home.
Absolutely.
And today you're much more well-rounded for your role because of that than probably if you had stayed here. And so you can't be afraid to make those changes. You got to believe in yourself, and you were able to stay in this community and come back home. So I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. We were talking about this with our students the other day. It's about growth, right? When you are come to a point, whether it's your career, your education, your degree, where you don't feel like you're growing, that's when the change needs to come, right? Because you need to feel that challenge. You need to feel that newness. And so one of the things we try to instill in our students is to take that risk and to have that growth mindset, because if you're learning, there's no negative to that, right? You're always continuing to be better.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Dr. Ashley Whitley, Superintendent of Lakota Local School District. Ashley, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Loved it.
Java with Joe has been brought to you by Kemba Credit Union, sponsored in part by First Choice Coffee and Real Vision. Thanks for listening.